Hello, my name's Rory. This is just a quick follow-up video to my video about my electronic drum kit samples. In this video, I'm basically just going to go over what I did in Logic in order to achieve these samples. A quick apology for the sound quality of this video because I'm recording on my phone, both my voice and the playback from Logic, so sorry about that, but we'll get stuck into it. So here are all of the samples that I used as my samples. I used the baking tray and the cardboard box in combination to make the kick drum sound, so we'll start with that. So first of all, here's the sound of the baking tray by itself. Okay, and here's the sound of the cardboard box by itself. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you how I superimpose these together. So I'm just going to splice this baking tray just so it comes in as soon as the audio file starts. So I'll zoom in a bit further. You can see here, if I open it up a bit more, you can see that this is where the audio file starts. So I've got my marquee tool. So I'm just going to hold down Command, double click, delete this bit of the track, and then drag that to the start. So now I have my two kick drum samples that come in at the same time. I'll turn the baking tray down a bit so you can hear the thud of the cardboard box a bit more. A bit more. Okay, this one needs a little bit of trim as well. So I'll do the same thing for this one. Okay, I did that one a bit too far, so I'll go back. About there. Okay, so now they sound pretty much in time. I'm just going to cut off this side of the baking tray file as well. Okay, so now I've got these two samples. First of all, for the baking tray, I added match EQ and Nverb, which is a type of reverb. So I'll show you how I did that. So I've gone to Audio Effects. So I'll start with the match EQ. So then you get this plugin set up. I go over to EQ Curve. I'll put this on a loop so that it plays continuously. Okay, so for this one what I did was I boosted the low end like so, just a few lines up like that, and I took down the mid-high frequencies a bit, so it looked something like that. Okay, so it was about that sort of amount of EQ, so that gives it more of a bassy sort of punch. And then the Nverb, which is a type of reverb, I had this on aggressive tail. So I think that's one of the first presets. Aggressive tail, there it is. So it's just thinking about it. Yep. Okay. So that's that done. Moving on to the cardboard box. So for this I use match EQ as well. So I'll add that in. Keep that playing. Let me just solo the cardboard box. So go over to EQ Curve. For this one I did the same sort of shape, so I boosted the low frequencies for that as well. Maybe not so much. And I took out a lot of the high end. Okay. So we'll leave it at that. And then I also added in a silver verb, which is a different type of reverb. I didn't mess around with these bits too much. All I did was I turned the dry output to 80%, and I put the wet output to 18%. So it's not got a huge amount of reverb on it, so you can hear what that sounds like. Okay, so now that's the 2 kick drum samples with all the audio effects on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to alt drag them out there, and then I'm going to bounce these 2 tracks into one. So we'll call this kick, and then it will make a separate audio track for that. And now we'll just solo that, see what that sounds like. Okay, and then what I did was I added a quick fade out. So I'll go to the fade tool, hold down Command, and start from about there, and then that should fade out the sample. Okay, so that's my kick drum, all done. Next we'll move on to the snare drum. So for the snare drum I used the bottle caps in Tupperware and some cassette tape hiss. So for the bottle caps in Tupperware, I'll put the loop back on and let you hear that. Yeah. So what I did to that, I added match EQ. What did I do to this? Okay, so about 1k hertz, I boosted the mid to high frequencies. So I added a few little bits like that. So we'll listen to that. So it's a bit more high pitched now, which is what I wanted for a snare. I also used a Silververb again. This time I had it on 66% dry and 29% wet. So about there. Nice, sounding good. So that's that one done. And then I got my cassette tape hiss. So I don't actually want the sound of the cassette turning on, so I'll cut that bit out. I'll go back to my marquee tool. Double click on that, get rid of that, and then I'll just take a little snippet of this. That should be enough. Delete the rest. And I didn't actually add any effects to this one because I wanted it to sound sort of as real as possible. So here's the 2 of these together. Cool. So I'll do the same thing as before. I'll drag these 2 out here and then bounce these 2 together. And we'll call this snare. So now we have our snare track. Turn my loop off. Cool. Pull that forward. And then again, I just added a fade out to that. So I'm holding Command about midway through. Cool. So that's the snare drum. So we've got kick and snare so far, and now we'll move on to the cymbals. So yeah, I used just a pile of cassette tape for this. So this is what the hi-hat sounds like. Cool. So I only added reverb to this. I used Silververb. So I put dry 80% and wet 20%. Sounding good. And I don't need to bounce that. So moving on to the crash one. So this is the slow, this is the fast rustling of the tape. Okay, so for this, all I added was match EQ, and I boosted the high frequencies starting at about 1 kHz. So a little bump here and a bigger bump. I'm working from a notepad that I've doodled on. Try and emulate what I did the first time. So it's about that, I think. Boosting the high end. I didn't put any reverb on the Crash 1 because I wanted it to sound really close, as opposed to Crash 2, which is supposed to sound really far away. So this is what this sounds like. I'll take the loop off. It goes on for a bit longer. Cool. So then what I did to that is I just added a crossfade, just a fade out at the end. And I also added a little fade in at the beginning. Just a tiny one. Just so it's a little bit less abrupt. And then you can experiment with tailing off in different ways. I think I did something like that on the original. I actually forgot to add a fade out to this one, actually. I'm pretty sure I did one for that. Okay, so I've done my Crash 1. Okay, moving swiftly on to Crash 2. So this is the one that wants to sound far away, so I've got some reverb and EQ on this. We'll start with the EQ, so that's match EQ again. So I boosted this about 500 Hertz, about that much, and then again at 1000 Hertz. So it looks like about that. And then I also added Silververb, and I did 80% dry and 20% wet. So this is what it sounds like now. Sorry, I'll just solo this. Nice. And then I just added a similar fade out at the end, curve it a little, add a little one at the start, and here we go. Okay, cool. So that's all of that done. So once I had all of these audio files, I uploaded them onto my electronic drum kit, and then I recorded it. This is the final recording, which you can hear on the original video. And I have to admit, I did use some flex time on this in order for it to be a bit more in time. An obvious way of fixing being out of time is to be a better drummer, but I sort of cheated and took the easy way out. So I added some flex time. So I did that by clicking this flex time button here. Make sure it's on polyphonic, and then I'll play that along with the cassette tape loop that I made, and then I'll just listen to wherever the kick or a snare sounds slightly out of time, and then I'll add a bit of flex time. So I'll turn it on for this track. So analyze it. So we'll just give it a quick listen. Okay, that kick sounded a little bit out of time, so I'll zoom in on that. So that was that little bump there. So I'll click to make a marker. We'll listen to that again, put a loop on. Yeah, I feel like that's a little bit too late. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make markers on the two lines either side of it. And then zoom in real close and push it slightly forward a bit, just so it comes in a little bit more in time. So we'll listen to that now. Cool, so I think it sounds a little bit more in time now. So I did that for the whole track. I won't say how many times I did it and how many times I actually played the drums in time. And yeah, I think that's about it. That's all the DAW techniques that I've used for this track. So I hope you've enjoyed, and thank you for watching, and sorry about the bad quality of the audio. Goodbye.